Hello, my name is Chris Bogdan, and I'm going to quickly go over my IoT event notification application that I did for the imapex group. Basically, the overview of this application is it is a generic notification engine for IoT devices. So what that means is that the applications are going to run on an IoT-enabled router, i.e. the Cisco 819. This application will notify users whenever an event occurs. So basically there's different sensors that you could plug in, and there's different output modules that you could plug in to let the user know whenever that event occurs. From a flow diagram, we have the IoT notification engine that is running on the router itself. Then we have various sensors. I've developed two sensors for you. One is a generic sensor that just does a random number, and then basically the return of that random number compared to a certain value, and if it is equal to it, then that sensor hit was true. I also have a weather sensor that basically it goes out online, gets the weather for a particular zip code, and then we could compare that weather with a predetermined value, and if the result is true, then that sensor is a positive sensor hit. From a notification engine, we currently have 3 notification engines. These can also all be used simultaneously, so you could have multiple notification engines at the same time. For example, we have one, it's a screen sensor, or a screen notification. This will run on the application and it will display the output on the screen itself. Not very useful for a IoT-enabled router, but for debugging purposes, it's very useful. Another one is a spark sensor, that whenever a true sensor hit occurs, then basically we will send a message to a spark room. And then finally, there's a text message sensor that's using this Tropo API that whenever a true sensor occurs, it'll text a person. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a quick demo of the application. And what I'm going to do is we have a configuration file that basically shows you exactly everything in the application itself. So we're enabling the print sensor because we want to show it on the screens. We're disabling the Tropo notification engine and also the Spark notification engine, and we're going to enable the weather underground sensor. And what this is basically doing is it's getting the weather for 16066 zip code. It's going to compare it to 95, and if that value is true, then a positive sensor occurred. So we're going to run this application and look at the output, and it has just completed. And what we did is we ran the application. As you can see, it went out to Weather Underground to query that particular zip code, and it actually read data from that website. 78.4 degrees is the data that was returned. Obviously, in the configuration, we specified we wanted to compare it to 95. Obviously, 78 is less than 95, so therefore a true sensor hit occurred, so we displayed a positive message that said a positive sensor compare just occurred. So that's the way the application runs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show it running on an 819 router. This is the IOX Local Manager application, and it allows us to control the applications that are running on this particular router itself. If we go into the application in the app config, very similar to what we showed in PyCharm, but we are now disabling the print sensor because there's no screen to show to, but we're enabling the Tropo notification engine, and we're saying we want to notify this particular phone number whenever a positive sensor occurs, and we also want to enable the Spark sensor. Or I'm sorry, the Spark notification engine, and then finally same thing with Weather Underground. It is going to go out, query 16066, compare it to 95. If it's less, then that's a positive sensor. So now we're going to go into this application and we're going to start the application. So this is telling the router, go out and start this Python application that is running on its router itself. Now behind the scenes, the application is going out and the application is doing exactly what it did on our computer, but it's requesting the weather from the internet, doing that comparison, and then figuring out whether or not it was successful or not. So let's stop that and see what happened. And here is the current sensor that we just received. So we did a positive hit. The weather was less than 95 degrees, so it immediately sent me a text message that said a positive sensor compare just occurred. We're also going to show the same thing within a Spark room. So I have a Spark room, set up, and here's the exact same message. So once that positive sensor hit occurred, it obviously sent a message to the Spark room and said that that positive sensor did occur. So that's the application, and real quick, to show some other use cases of why this is useful, we are going to use it for some other applications. One use case would be to alert an employee anytime a user drives up through a drive-through window. Let's say there's a sensor on the ground, a trigger sensor. If you tie that sensor into the router, then we could write a sensor module to read from that sensor and then alert the user. How about anytime a user opens or closes a garage door? This might be useful for your house. And then finally, same thing, maybe put a sensor on a door, tie it into the IoT router, and then we can notify anyone whenever the door opens or closes. So thank you. Once again, this is the IoT event notification engine, and hope you enjoyed my application. Thank you.